Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome to the brand new, revamped, remodeled version of Podio Commentary. This is an idea that I had a while ago about wanting to just do discussions on movies, talk about them, and add as much information as we can possibly get to throw into the mix. And tonight we're kind of revamping that, bringing in my good friend Enosh Fee from Poindexter Lounge. We're going to be talking about the movie. He's another big Demolition Man fan. So if you ever saw the very first Podio Commentary, you know that I tried Demolition Man, was the very first one that I did. And I did it myself. And I feel like, it's like you can only have so much of a conversation with yourself that doesn't come across as pretentious or weird. So I wanted to bring in someone who is as big of a fan of this movie as I am, which would be Enosh, and just kind of talk about the movie, the story, the characters, and the long-lasting cultural effect, and just anything else that comes up with this movie. Because I don't know about you, Enosh, but it's been what, almost 30 years, and like 3 years it will be 30 years. And
Well,
this movie,
I absolutely liked it. Did you like it? Yes, I thought it was good too.
there we go. Okay, fine.
Talking to
Thank you for
myself,
coming
you
to
can only
Audio
talk-
Commentary. That's it. 1 minute, 17 seconds long, and now the episode's over. We liked it. Go watch
There
it.
you go.
But no, this movie is 27 years old. And it's just so weird to think that, for one, it's like almost kind of culturally relevant still.
Yeah.
In many ways. It never wasn't, to some extent, culturally relevant.
True.
It's been just, it's a fantastic rewatch time and time and time again. And I think to people like you and me that are like, you're in your 40s, I'm in my late 30s. We grew up watching this.
Mhm.
So it's like stood the test of time with us. And I do feel that a lot of the younger crowd doesn't fully get why this movie is as good as it is. They might know some of the memes, they might know some of the jokes, but they really don't, I think, understand the reason why. And I call this, maybe you'll agree with me or disagree with me, I don't know, but I said previously, this is the last great 80s action movie, because it's right in that cusp. It's like 1993 is when it came out, which means that it was shot in 92 roughly. And then it was conceived in 91 or 1990, coming off of the 80s action films, the Shane Black era, if you will. And it just kind of feels like they took all that and they just really gave it this, like, such a crazy futuristic view of Southern California, the San Angeles Valley.
Yeah.
And brought us this movie with memorable characters like John Spartan. Like, what kind of a name is John Spartan?
That's your 80s influence right there, man. That's your 80s action influence. It's John Spartan. Yeah.
Just like, you've been fined 3 credits. It's like, I mean, but like the name John Spartan. Cause like for me, like I'm a big Halo fan. So like, Spartan 117, like I hear Spartans, I think Halo, but now when I think John Spartan, it's like one of the most uber excellent action hero names ever, and it doesn't ever get, I think, as much play. It's not like John McClane.
Yeah. Well, when I hear when I don't know if you ever remember this, but talking about 80s, like I have still my original Intellivision game system. And so
you would.
Yep, I do. I've got it right over here. It's an Intellivision 2, actually, Intellivision 2 game system that I've had since I was like 5 years old. And with that was before, everything was cool enough where you could actually have, talking video games, right? So it just made blips and stuff like that. And so had to get this other piece to connect to it. So where the cartridge went, you put this other thing in that was called IntelliVoice. And you connected that, and they only had like I think 2 or 3 games at first. I don't know how many games they ended up having, but one of the games was called Space Spartans. And so one of my memories of this is the first time I ever heard them say, John Spartan, it reminded me of that game, because when you plugged in the game and you turned it on, it talked, but it wasn't like it talked like we hear video games today. It's just voice. It was like this robotic type of voice, and it was trying to be something. So it sounds like Bane. It sounds like a muffled voice go, Space Spartans. And so every time I heard John Spartan, I just heard Space Spartans. So it's totally 80s for me, man.
Well,
totally
it is. It actually, like, even I have the Wikipedia up right here.
Yeah, me too.
We'll talk about that, because they talk a little bit about that in the Wikipedia. And but for those of you who don't know what this movie is, and there might be like as Podio Commentary grows, we're going to get new people, new listeners, and you're going to be hopefully listening to podcasts about movies you may not know. Let me just first and foremost say this: if you have not seen this movie, pause this, go find it. I don't know where; it's not streaming anywhere. You should be able to acquire it legally or through other metrics if you have reason to do that, and watch it, because it is pop culture just to the max. I mean, they literally make fun of pop culture in this movie so amazingly. And it's words cannot describe like how good this movie is just in general. It's held the test of time. It's got a beloved fan base. And if you ever hear jokes about Taco Bell and the franchise war and you're like, I don't know what that means. Well, you'll know what it means by the end of this, unless you're international, in which case Pizza Hut is the one you're going to be hearing. And that's fake news. And that's fake news. I don't know why that made it in that's a fake story at this point. Like it's in the movie, but it doesn't count. It's non-canon. The international cut of this movie
I
is
never
non-canon.
knew that. So for anybody watching this, yeah, I mean, the joke is that at some point there were the restaurant fast food franchise wars.
Yeah,
because this is set in the future. John Spartan gets frozen because he blows stuff up. He's a cop. He blows stuff up.
It says here he's a risk-taking police officer. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, he's known as the Demolition Man because everything that he touches gets destroyed. And that whole opening sequence, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big like action movie guy. Like there are Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that I like, but I don't like just everything. I wouldn't say that I'm like into that whole thing, right?
You are missing out then, man. But,
I know. Yeah. I never got like big into like Rambo or like Commando or stuff like that.
Really missing out.
But I love Terminator. I love,
Do you like Die Hard? Do you like Die Hard?
I do like Die Hard, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. I've only seen Die Hard like a couple of times, and you know what a big movie fan I am.
Yeah,
but I keep telling my wife, I'm like, we just got to watch all the Die Hard.
Well, Die Hard is like a sequel, spiritually speaking, and originally. We're off topic for a second, but Die Hard is kind of like a spiritual sequel to Commando.
Really?
Yeah, it's so like the book Commando is based off of. There's a sequel, which was the basis for what Die Hard became. Yeah, that's all.
Now I'm even more interested. Okay,
because you said Commando, like you're bringing up Commando. I'm like, if you haven't seen Die Hard, you got to watch that. There's lore there. There's lore there. Plus, it's the greatest American action movie. Like it's the greatest American action. I don't even know. Anyway,
but yeah. So for anybody watching, like, so you got Wesley Snipes, and you were talking about names. I mean, his name is Simon Phoenix.
Yeah.
But John Spartan goes after him. Everything gets blown, to heck. It's all messed up, and so they ends up getting John Spartan in trouble. So they cryogenically freeze both of them.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is though, like what happens with John Spartan is, so like it starts off in 1997, right? And the Wikipedia here says 1996. The Wikipedia is wrong. It's 19. I remember seeing this in 93 when it came out, or maybe 94 when it hit home video, and it's all like Los Angeles 1997, and I'm all like, what, man, that's so far in the future, man. I'm like,
almost not 2000.
Yeah, what? It's not gonna be like that. And like they have this like completely like he's like busted out warehouse. They actually shot that, I think, like in Detroit.
I wouldn't surprise me.
I think they shot that. Let me take a look here. I'd have to go through and look at it again.
Yeah.
But I think they shot it in they definitely shot it somewhere outside of LA, but they really like what it was is there's like this Simon Phoenix took a bus, an LA City bus, full of people hostage, right? So think Speed. That's in my mind went to Speed originally, because it came out right around the same time. Actually, no, Speed was a year later. I think Speed was 94. But so anyway, like they get the bus and like Spartan goes in to take him out, and he takes out all of Phoenix's guys. But Phoenix ends up detonating the building anyway. And according to the police, Spartan was responsible for that, therefore killing like those 30 some odd people, except they were already dead by the time Spartan got there. It was all a setup to take out Spartan, and Phoenix just got caught, wasn't anticipating that. So like, that's why they cryogenically froze him, which is such an interesting concept to me when I first saw it, because it's like, but he didn't do anything wrong. Why would the police throw him under the bus? I was a kid. I was like 12 when I first saw this movie. I now know a lot more as an adult, and I get that.
You're just like, he got in trouble, so he got frozen too.
Yeah, like what did he do? Like he tried to save the day. It's like what did you know? And it's like,
Yeah,
oh
he
right, and
wore
then
a beret. He was cool.
and like they know what they call him, the Demolition Man. He jumps from a helicopter and everything. Like they know exactly what he's gonna do. They
It's
know
like
exactly.
mentally okay Rambo. Like,
Right? It's like what if Rambo was rehabilitated and hired by the
right,
LAPD? Like
right. That's basically it right there, man.
there we go. I cracked the case of I cracked the
That's it.
case of Demolition Man.
That's it. That's what he
Oh,
is, man.
see, that's a movie I'd watch 100%.
He's mentally stable Rambo.
He
is
got
what
a
he
lot
is.
of help. You know, he went on some antidepressants. He really cried it out, and
He
then
still got some issues because we all have issues.
it's not my war. Anyway, I love the opening of that movie because
Oh,
it
it's
just
great.
it comes across as extremely dystopian. It does.
Yeah.
And setting it in 97 the way that they did, I think it worked because at the time no one knew what was going to happen towards the end of the millennium. You know, like
Yeah.
no one knew, and I don't think the Y2K thing was a big thing. It was really kind of coming up at the time. But
Yeah,
there's
not
always
yet,
that
no.
fear
Yeah.
about what could happen. And so I just like that they open it up with that, and then they start bringing in the cryogenics because from as a kid I was like, oh, that's like the coolest thing ever, man. Like,
Right? Yeah.
frozen and going into the future, like holy crap. And then of course 1999 Futurama comes out, and I
Mhm.
guarantee you Futurama was in some way based off of Demolition Man.
Inspired, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely
but it's interesting because like not only do they cryogenically freeze him, but they rehabilitate them while they're cryogenically frozen.
Yeah.
So they pump these like thoughts and creativity into their minds, and so you can actually come out having new skills and having been rehabilitated and kind of like mind controlled into being a proper citizen.
Yeah, well,
That's a weird concept too.
but it's interesting because the screenwriter had said at the time he had been hearing about cryogenic freezing facilities and celebrities wanting to cryogenically freeze themselves.
Okay.
And that was kind of the basis for this because so they sentenced both men to the city's new California cryo penitentiary.
Yeah.
Right. Which again, total 80s concept coming right into the early 90s.
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah.
But they're exposed to subliminal rehabilitation. And that
Mhm.
there's an episode of The Outer Limits. It wasn't the original series. It was the one that they remade in the 90s.
Mhm.
But there's an episode with David Hyde Pierce where he ends up going to prison for like years and years and years and subjected to all the abuse of prison. And you find out that it was literally just kind of the same concept. They put him in a deep sleep and they implanted those memories, that experience, like they uploaded his conscious or something into this
Yeah.
program. And he was able to then live out his sentence in a matter of hours. And he came out just
wow.
completely broken because of what he experienced inside there. So it's very similar in that regard, I think, for what they were trying to do. But I like how they overplayed it in this movie. Like it's, like, oh, we taught him how to knit, or
so he comes out being able to knit. That's so funny because they basically weakened him. They tried to weaken him. While with Simon Phoenix, they gave the terrorist even more skills, weaponry skills, things like that, to be able to come out, to be more intellectual in the way that he approaches things and things like that. And so that's interesting. But to get back to the point, is like they get frozen, and then when they come out like 30 years later, there's these franchise wars that Taco Bell and in this utopian society, Taco Bell has won the franchise wars of all the fast food places. And so that's a big setup because when he comes out, like he meets the mayor and he meets everybody and he meets the chief of police and all this stuff. And they're like, we will see you later. We're going to take you to Taco Bell. And everyone's like super excited for Taco Bell.
We're going to dinner.
Oh my gosh,
where's dinner?
We'll see you
at
Taco
Bell.
He's going to take you to Taco Bell. And I love, I love Sylvester Stallone in this movie because like he does, I don't know, he plays like the normal character that Sylvester Stallone plays, yet he plays it kind of differently in this movie. It's
a fish out of water. It's a fish out of water.
He's
story.
not trying so hard in this movie, which I really love.
Yeah, because he's having fun. It's not like because right around that same time, like Dredd came out, Judge Dredd came out, and which I like that movie. I'll take the hits on that, but I've always enjoyed it. Nowhere near as good as the 2012 one. That's a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. But I enjoy the cheese factor and the campy factor from 1996. Or 95's Dredd. But at the same time, he also did The Specialist, I think, right around, it was like the next year. Like 94, 95, he did that Sharon Stone, James Wood movie, The Specialist.
Yes.
Nevermind, Assassins came out right around the same time. So you have these more serious action movies.
That's that like that shower scene with him and Sharon Stone.
Yeah, I remember seeing theaters
where like Sharon Stone, like all of a sudden it was like she had to be naked in every movie. Like that was like
I as weird as this is to say, the only part of that I really remember is like how much they focused on his ass. You know, it's like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies back in the day, and there's always a shot of his ass. It's like must be in his contract. Like I want the shot of my ass.
But I tell you what, man, you know, you got to give it to Sylvester Stallone, man. The guy was ripped.
He was like in his early 40s. He was in his early 40s.
Guy,
yeah.
He's a little guy. I mean, he's short, but man, the guy was just absolutely ripped.
I mean, I would argue that like the early 90s was him because he was 74. He's 74 years old now. He just turned.
Wow.
God, that's so weird to think that. So 27 years ago, he would have been okay. He would have been like in his mid 40s when they shot the movie. So he was kind of at the height of his physicality, I think.
Yeah.
In there. And I mean, I'd also say too, that when you're doing the Expendables, which would be another series I think we're talking about here on this program, because I love those movies too. He's done like a lot. And so I really enjoy his 90s work. I really do. And to me, the pinnacle of his 90s movies are flat out Demolition Man, because it's just so much fun. But I mean,
but that Taco Bell and Pizza Hut thing. So for those watching, if you haven't seen the movie, so the thing is for years, it's always been Taco Bell. Everybody knows it's Taco Bell. We always joke about that. It's like, oh, anytime I go to Taco Bell, it's like, we're going to take you to Taco Bell. And like my family will kind of joke back with me and go, ooh, we're going to Taco Bell. And I'm like, well, yes. Like, what's so special about Taco Bell? They're the brand that won the franchise wars. And we'll actually have this interaction between me and my family when we go to Taco Bell. But
it's the only reason why I still go to Taco Bell.
Yeah,
it's the only reason.
It's like they won the franchise wars. I gotta go.
I'm gonna go get that bean and cheese burrito because Sylvester Stallone told me.
5-layer burrito. Give me that butt looking like that in the shower with Sharon Stone, man. I tell you right now.
At least it's not Chipotle. Then it'd be be like that scene from Dreamcatcher. But
but my friend, so this is how I found out about the Pizza Hut thing, was that my friend Jordan, I've turned him on to 2 movies in the last year and a half. One was UHF.
Perfect movie.
Oh yeah, it's a great movie. And he had never seen it, and so he downloaded it to his Plex, and like the next day he was like, "Oh my god, thank you so much for showing."
How do you not have seen?
Well, because
UHF?
He's a lot younger than I am. He's like in his mid 20s, so he had not seen it, right? And
how do you live not having grown up with Weird Al Yankovic?
I know. Well, he knew who Weird Al was, but he wasn't like the big fan that I am.
Well, that's just his loss.
Exactly. He's got to catch up. He's got a lot of catching up to do, but he's a good guy. But so he loved that. And so I told him, I said, another movie. So I started talking about Demolition Man, like he had just seen it. And he's like, what is Demolition Man? And I'm like, you haven't seen Demolition Man? He's like, he keeps reminding me, he's like, Enosh, I was born in like 1999, or something like 1980 or 98, something like that. And I'm like, oh yeah. Cause he always seems kind of older than he is. He's like one of those guys and stuff. So I always forget. And so I'm like, well, dude, Demolition Man, I'm telling him all about it and stuff. And so he goes and he downloads it and watches it. And he comes back and he's like telling me, thank you again, man. That's 2 for 2. Such a great movie, Enosh. And he's like, especially the part about Pizza Hut. And I'm like,
oh, he downloaded the European version.
Yeah, and so I'm like, what about Pizza Hut? And he's like, oh, how all restaurants are Pizza Hut now. And I'm like, no, dude, it's Taco Bell. And he's like, no, I just watched it. It's Pizza Hut. And I'm like, no, it's Taco Bell, dude. Trust me on this one. I've been watching this movie for years. And he's like, dude, I just saw it last night. It's pizza. And we literally get in this argument, Matt, back and forth. And I'm thinking, this guy is insane. I'm like, Jordan is actually, you've lost it, dude. I'm like, I don't even know how to have this argument with you because it's Taco Bell. Everybody knows it's Taco Bell. And so we went back and forth so much that finally I said, look, I'm going to show you. And I get my phone out and I punch in Pizza Hut and Demolition Man. And then, of course, it pops up with the whole.
Yeah. So you were thinking it was some kind of Mandela effect situation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And except for it was like in real time because he had just seen the movie the night before. And I'm like, this is insane. But
is this a fan edit I don't know of?
Yeah. And then when we saw
is there one with Hooters?
It's a multiverse of Demolition Man movies where it's like
now we know it. This is a Warner Brothers movie. Now we know what they're up to. The the eventual reboot.
I demand the Arby's cut. I want the Arby's cut. We're all
Hashtag
restaurants. All
hashtag release
restaurants.
the Arby's cut. If you guys are listening to this podcast, please put that in the chat. Please put it in the comment box. You made it this far. But no, it's true. Yeah. The pizza. So I was doing research on this movie a while ago, and so the story is that they put Pizza Hut in the international version because it's better known outside of the United States. Taco Bell is better known. Yeah, that's why. So they wanted, and the thing is, they're both owned by Yum Brand, so it's the same company, same parent company. So like, they exchange one for the other. But according to the Wall Street Journal, this kind of localization of product placement was a first of its kind for the time. And we don't really hear much about that anymore in regards to product placement in movies. Like it's just kind of all one thing. I mean, maybe it's because now, nearly 30 years later, we're a much more interconnected world. And back then we weren't. So that part makes sense. But I mean, really, it's like the Taco Bell thing is the Taco Bell thing. So when I first heard about it being Pizza Hut, and I've seen the video footage of it.
I haven't seen it.
You can find it on YouTube. It's there.
Well, he's got it on his Plex, and I'm connected to his Plex. I just refuse to watch it. No,
no, you should totally watch it.
I'm going to,
because it would just blow your mind. You'll be like, whoa, like I never knew this was a reality. Like, oh my God.
Like, so all those shots are filmed with them saying Pizza Hut.
Yeah, so they just had him redo it. Like, all right, good, yeah, it was a good takes, Sly. Go ahead and say it again. This time, Pizza Hut.
Pizza. That reminds me of Rocky 2. It's like, in the morning when I go to Taco Bell, I get a beefy 5-layer burrito, and it makes me feel manly in the morning. Like, no, Sly. We got to have you. Can you say Pizza Hut? In the morning when I go to Pizza Hut, it makes me feel mainly doing commercials.
It's what cracks me up though about everything with this movie. Again, the Taco Bell thing is probably the most cultural relevant aspect of it, but also our kind of Snowflake Society. And how we are with that nowadays. This kind of predated that. So I love the world building in this, because San Angeles is like Los Angeles, San Diego, and the San Bernardino Valley, which is that's an insanely huge area. It's 141 miles from San Diego to Los Angeles. I know because when I've made that drive, oh my God, so many times. It's like, it's a huge area. And everyone is very much like in all these like pastels or neutral colors. And they've got this very kind of Whoopi Goldberg from Star Trek: The Next Generation look going on. Yeah. The cops don't carry guns. They carry stun batons that just knock people out. Yeah. Like they've got like anti-graffiti measures everywhere. And it's very clean. It's very sterile. And it's very kind of, it is kind of dystopian, but in just a completely different fashion, And so that's the juxtaposition between 97 LA and 2032 LA is very cool. And I love it when Phoenix breaks out and like he's unable to kill Cocteau. And he goes out there and he's like, able to hack into the system. You're like, oh, wow, this is kind of cool, because now the bad guy is way more enhanced than he was going in.
Murder, death, kill
187, murder, death, kill. God, that lived on. I remember there's a video game called MDK, murder, death, kill. And I just kept thinking about Demolition Man like the whole time.
Oh, yeah, heck yeah.
I'm like, you can't ever, if you grew up in the 90s, you knew about that. And of course, the Three Seashells thing. But
we could have used the Three Seashells thing about 3 months ago, depending on when you're
true.
To this
funny thing about the Three Seashells
pandemic, we're out of toilet paper. We could really use some seashells right now.
It came up quite a bit. Actually, that was one of the reasons why I think I wanted to do this original Podio commentary. I talked about the Three Seashells, like, because where that came from. Did you read about where that originated?
No, I haven't.
So the so it was the writer of it was looking for
Matt Garbo right now. Do you mean Daniel Waters, Robert Renault, or Peter M. Lenkov?
No, it was one of the.
I love how you just pull names out of the way. So I mean, I'm totally not on the Wikipedia at all.
I am absolutely on the Wikipedia right now.
Names right here in my head. And
yeah,
so I'm wondering which one of those screenplay writers.
It wasn't the. Well, it was
Peter Lenkov and Robert Renault, but
it was one of the producers, I think. I'm trying to think of like who it was, because it was one of the other writers. It was
Silver, Michael Levy, or Howard.
No, it was Daniel Waters. He also wrote Heathers. So he was brought in to do a rewrite.
Daniel Waters. Yes, he's one.
Yes. So he was brought in, according to this, he's brought in to do a rewrite, and he changed it quite a bit. But one of the things that he did was he wanted to have a lot of fun. But, you know, he does say here he wasn't trying to deeply examine political correctness, but I think like 30 years on, it is more relevant than ever.
Oh my gosh.
But the Three Seashells concept, which blew everyone away back in the day and is still joked about now. It's like they don't have toilet paper. You go into the bathroom, there are three seashells. And then people have come up with their own theories about this over the span of the last 3 decades. But really what it is, it was from when Daniel Waters is trying to come up with ideas for a futuristic restroom, and he called a friend of his for suggestion who happened to be in the bathroom at the time.
I think
when he took the call. He just goes like, he looked around his bathroom and he had a bag of seashells on the toilet as decorations. Because for some reason,
I have heard this.
People put seashells on.
Yeah. What's that about?
Like I want a beach theme, when you're taking a Duke. Like, I really want to like look at the ocean for some. I don't know. Is it calming? Seashells don't calm me. Yeah, I don't. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know. But that's all it was. Is they just made a joke about that, and so he just put that in there. But really, I mean, the beauty of that, whole angle of doing it like that has everything to do with the fact that the audiences have spent, 30 years trying to decipher it. And then there's even like instructional videos and instructional material that's out on the internet about the Three Seashells. So it's really kind of kept going. And it also, I think, is one of the funniest scenes of the movie when he just goes right over to the demerit machine and just starts cursing into it in order to get the toilet paper. All right, so the seashells, I mean, it's an amazing concept. It's lived on for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that gets overlooked, in my opinion, is the performance of Sandra Bullock.
Absolutely.
Because everyone always goes back to Speed with Sandra Bullock. They always go back to her portrayal there, going up against Keanu Reeves and Dennis Hopper and that whole story. And it's a great movie, but coming in and playing this kind of like just doe-eyed, happy-go-lucky cop who's never experienced a world like Spartan came from, where it's all just clean and sterilized. And she's got this massive fascination for the 90s.
Yes.
Which I thought was really interesting. And because he's president, because he was president for a while. The Schwarzenegger Presidential Library. That was another thing too, when Schwarzenegger ran for governor of California and he won back in 2003. So a full 10 years after this movie, I was running for governor of California at the same time too. That is a true story. And then I'll tell more about that at some other point. But
wow.
Yeah, I won a radio station contest. I'm not kidding you. And that's so true. It's so true. But anyway, so like at the time, all of us were joking about like the Demolition Man prophecy is coming true. Of like Schwarzenegger becoming governor is the next step going to be president. Now he wasn't born here, but would people really kind of question that? Would if they liked him well enough, would they just allow it to happen? I mean, he was married to a Kennedy at the time, right? So it's like, I mean, there's a lot going on politically. Figure it out.
Well, and it's funny. It's funny to see Stallone's reaction when he walks into her office and he sees the Schwarzenegger poster, and he's just like,
well, not only that, but like you caught the Lethal Weapon 3 poster, right?
Yes.
And that was Joel Silver produced this movie, and that was another Joel Silver production, as well as the fact that this movie was heavily inspired by the Shane Black era of Lethal Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon 2, and Lethal Weapon 3, and probably also the like whatever else he was working on, Predator and a bunch of other films back in the time. Yeah. So you can see there's a lot of that kind of inspiration into this buddy cop situation, and I just think it's great because like she's just so plucky.
Oh yeah, she's so innocent, yet she wants to be something more. She wants to be hard edge, she wants to be a part of that, but yet she's not willing to fully commit to it, and so it's kind of like being in that in between, wanting to be the good girl but wanting to be the bad girl at the same time. And she's she knows just enough about it. She gets excited about this thing where everybody else is like, we don't understand your fascination with all this stuff. She's just like, oh, I just want something to happen. I just want to be able to do something, and the cops are sitting around like, what? I mean, I love the cops in this because Rob Schneider's in this.
Uncredited, actually. Is
uncredited.
He really uncredited? Yeah, he's uncredited in the movie for some reason. I think he's like, I'm looking here on the IMDb. He's not, like according to the Wikipedia, he's uncredited. And he's actually not even listed in the main cast here on the IMDb. So I don't know why
Oh.
they wouldn't credit, because I mean that was
Oh yeah,
like,
he said it.
well, because the other thing too is he was also in Judge Dredd. And the really cool thing about Rob Schneider is like he went on to go and be in Judge Dredd. So it's like, why is he uncredited in this movie? I don't get that.
And he has lines. I mean, he's making fun of the seashells things, like, oh, he doesn't know how to use the three seashells.
Yeah, like, oh, like that was like, because I remember seeing the trailers for Demolition Man, and there's Rob Schneider. And at the time, he was on SNL. I watched it every single week. I grew up watching those guys. So it's like, why wasn't he in there? I don't know. Maybe there's a
he's
reason.
funny. He's funny. Like it's not like he's just like in the background somewhere. He's up at the forefront. I love when all the cops are like always together in the main room there, and nobody's doing anything because basically the cops are just, what are they there for, really? I mean, there's nothing really going on in the city because living in the utopian world that they're living in, nothing ever happens. And that's kind of the point. So they just kind of take up space, and they don't, like you said, they don't have weapons. They don't do anything. And so they just sit around and make jokes and talk and,
that's about it. Yeah. It's like nothing ever happens. Nothing exciting ever happens in this world
until Phoenix shows up and just starts blowing everything up. And
how many years had it been since a murder, death, kill? It had been like many years since a murder, death, kill. So they were just like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to make of any of this.
Yep.
And then it's like Spartan comes in and it's like, I know what we have to do, and like, he's like, I need guns. Like he's going to go for guns. Where do I get guns? I love that scene because they go to the museum and it's just like this underground, like it's like, again, totally. I think even Futurama made fun of that, where they had like, because they were in New York, and then that was this built on top of old New York.
Mm-hmm.
So they go underground, and what they took was like a scene from like the LA riots or something. And that was like, that they just put like this glass panel over. And that was like what was there from years. Cause that's my interpretation. I could be wrong. But what I love is like getting all the guns. Like he goes in there just to get the pistol. And Simon Phoenix like grabs all the hardcore artillery because he knows how to use it.
Yep.
And so it's just like all the craziness that goes along with that scene is fantastic. And I love just like, that was what leads into the Taco Bell scene.
I love the fact that they're able to use a set in a proper way, because you can tell that set is so low budget.
Yeah.
But yet when the floor explodes, because like you said, they're looking down, in the museum, you can look down into what's supposed to be, a recreation of old Los Angeles, in a street scene or whatever. And when they blow up the floor and they all end up down there, you can tell that it's like one of the cheapest little sets that's ever made, but they get away with it because it's supposed to be like that, and it's just, it's great how you see how they worked around a bunch of stuff. Now I'm looking at this. I did not know that Jackie Chan was who Stallone wanted for the role of Simon Phoenix.
Yeah. And at the time it made a lot of sense because I think Chan was big in China. And they probably wanted to find a way to integrate him here into the Western culture. It took a couple more years. I think Rumble in the Bronx was 95, 96. And that was his first big, foray into everything here in the States. But I like Chan's reason for not doing it. He didn't want to play the villain.
Yep.
And I don't, because he's hasn't still to this day hasn't played a villain character, I don't think.
No.
So he definitely has maintained that.
I don't know. He was in that adult film. I didn't see that one. He may have been.
I mean, if he finished, he's kind of the hero. But whatever, man.
Stallone was also in one. So maybe the big crossover event.
That was a big thing back in the day. People going into these they needed to pay their bills, so that's what they did. Little brown chicken, brown cow. But what I also like, but going back to Sandra Bullock, because Sandra Bullock wasn't the first hire. Also, Lori Petty was originally as Lolena Huxley, and she was fired off the movie after 2 days of filming because her and Sylvester Stallone just didn't get along.
Now, see, I can see that because Lori Petty is like one of those people. Like I don't like a lot of stuff she did later on because I felt like I've seen Lori Petty in person, a couple years ago. And I don't like what she became. I really liked her in A League of Their Own.
Yeah.
And even though her character was annoying, I liked her.
Well, she was a sister, right? She was a sister.
Yeah, she was the little sister. So like I liked her a lot in that movie for who she was, and I thought she played great. But like she kind of turned a corner where she just went
Tank Girl might have been the reason for that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it just.
but I like Tank Girl. Like I'm on
Well,
that.
I'm a little special to Tank Girl.
Like, I like that movie.
I'm close to Tank Girl, and we have a private thing. Me and my wife, when I first started hanging out with her, she used to wear tank tops all the time, and so I used to call her Tank Girl. And so, like, so every time we see something with Tank Girl, we, have a smile and a chuckle.
Well, you got to get her to get a barbed wire tat around her arm and just start calling her barbed wire, and then go watch that Pamela Anderson movie. No, don't actually do that. No,
I won't. I got my own beautiful blonde bombshell. I don't need that.
Have you ever seen barbed wire?
I've seen parts.
Yeah. There's an unrated version apparently. I don't know. Maybe one day I have to track that one down. But no. Well, Lori Petty, I liked her in Tank Girl, and I liked her in Free Willy. And I agree.
I forgot she was in Free Willy.
Yeah, and she's done some, and then she kind of disappeared for a while. And then, like, the last thing I saw her in was Orange is the New Black. But I mean, she's very distinct in her voice. She's very distinct in her presence. And I think the character of Lena Huxley would have not been anywhere near as good or memorable with Lori Petty in the role. She would have tried being plucky, and her plucky doesn't work. Like, deeply cynical and narcissistic and nihilistic, that's Lori Petty in a nutshell. Like, that works for Lori Petty. But when it comes to everything else, I just don't see it. But Cassandra just, like, she brought that, like, the way she she kept screwing up the sayings.
Yes.
I forget what they are, but she screwed up all those different sayings, those commonplace sayings that we have in these action movies. She would screw them up, and then she would just, like, always be like, I just want to help. I want to do this. But what really always made me laugh was the sex scene between the two of them.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Because, like, in these movies, that's always coming, pun intended. And, not
in that movie, apparently.
No. Well, I mean, I guess, I don't know. We didn't get the full, but, like, just
didn't get the full on there. Did we?
But think about the technology that they used for sex back then, right? Like it was just like these like neural connectors, and then it was just it was like an emotional thing of bringing physical responses and everything. And just because it was like, and then she goes, oh, at first there was AIDS, because we're coming off of the 1980s, so the AIDS epidemic was huge back then. And then it was like the NPD, or a couple different ones that she labeled off over the span of like 40 some odd years. And then she, was like, so we just don't, now you have to get a license to have a kid. And I mean, I think at the time, because most people don't know this, from 1979 to 1999, our world population doubled from 3 billion to 6 billion. So that might have been some kind of political commentary, because I do think a lot of it is political satire. And even though the writer may not have intended it to be that way, it absolutely ended up being that way. But, people had to have, licenses to have kids. And I remember back then hearing people talk about overpopulation back in the 90s. And it's been 30 years, and it's, where, like, there's like, I think there's not I don't know if there's 8 billion of us now, but
close.
Yeah, there's a lot. Close. There's a lot of people here. And so
I love John Spartan. He's like, I'm thinking we could do it the old fashioned way. Cause she's like, I was wondering if you'd like to have sex. And he's like, with you here now? Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he's like, they go through the thing, and she tries to put the apparatus on him, and that doesn't work. He's like, I was thinking we could do it the old fashioned way. You mean fluid transfer? Ew.
Yeah, I know that was, but then also apply that to where we are now.
Yeah.
The casuality, though, the casualness of the situation. Yeah. Of like, oh, do you want to get down and boogie? Do you want to, do you want to do this? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, okay, but look at Tinder now, right? Tinder is almost like that, but just with actual fluid transmission.
Yeah, so because that wasn't the. I mean, people have always been doing it, but like, it wasn't as in the public as, hey, we're just looking for hookups. People have always been looking to hook up. You know what I mean? But
well,
now
you're never going to stop people from having sex.
Yeah, it's just so today. Like, you watch some of these reality shows that come on, and it's like people are just hooking up. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, I'm
well, that's also written that way too. It's also written that way.
Yeah.
You got like reality. Like, when I was in film school, one of my teachers said in my very first class was like, nothing you see on TV is ever real, especially reality TV.
Yeah.
And then I've met reality TV editors and like what they go through, and it's like, it's insane. But yeah, I mean, but I see your point though.
That's made to look though like
Yeah.
everybody's just hooking up. That's kind of the everyday thing.
Because sex sells.
Yep,
Sex sells.
absolutely.
You know, I mean, what I thought was funny though was like the one woman who calls on like the video phone and it's just like
she's naked.
And she's naked. Like, oh, I'm sorry, wrong number. Like,
and a younger me might have paused that scene a few times. Just
well, I mean, Exit to Eden got a lot of play in my house. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. I was a young kid. I saw the movie. I had recorded it. Actually, the first time I saw Demolition Man was like, remember when you get like free HBO weekend or something like that? And I would set my VCR and just watch stuff, and that's when I first watched it. So it was like, wait a second, there's like a half a second of a naked woman. What the heck that you could barely see on the video screen? Yeah,
my aunt and uncle had a black box. They had a black box, and they would record me movies off of like pay-per-view, right? Well, my aunt would just leave it running in the middle and go to bed, and my uncle would get up, and then my uncle wouldn't know that it was recording. So I would be watching a movie, and then it would all of a sudden cut over to like the Spice Channel, or the Playboy Channel, or whatever, and I would be like, I was like 15, going.
The best one of those for me is so my grandma would watch the Christian channel that we had at the time, on TV. And at 8 p.m. the Christian channel hooked off, right? It went off the air for some reason. It wasn't 24 hours back then. And so it went off the air, and I don't know who the genius was who decided to do this. But at 8 p.m. when the Christian channel went off, you literally went from Jesus, we love Jesus to bloop. And scrambled Playboy channel came on.
Gotta love it, man.
At 8 p.m. And sometimes you'd be like mid-movie. And so you'd go from Jesus to sounds and grunts, and you're like, and
well, you'd hear Jesus stuff too, but just in a totally different context.
Speaking of Lenina Huxley's quotes, how about this one? Let's go blow this guy. John Spartan. Away. Blow this guy away. Whatever.
She's got the best lines. I mean, like, her character is wonderful. I would have loved
to. There's a new shepherd in town. That's Sheriff.
She just she nailed those lines too. And I have to say, I love that Benjamin Bratt was like her buddy.
Oh yeah,
was it Ibanez? Was that his name, Ibanez or something? Or Martinez? It might have been Martinez.
Martinez, yes,
Martinez. Yes. And I just loved how he was like, yeah, hey, what's going on? Like, I'm just here to, and then at the end of the movie, he's like totally right. He's like total wastelanded out sort of thing. Like he's with the people under the city,
Oh yeah.
Like I just love all that. So I mean, there's so many good things in that movie with those characters.
You can take this job and you can shovel it. Take this job and shove it.
Yeah.
Looks like he matched his meat. You really licked his.
Yeah. She sells it. She completely sells it.
You completely believe it because you know what? Sandra Bullock could play the girl next door. Like she had that. And that's why I really think that she's a better choice for that role, like you said, than Lori Petty, because she didn't just have the look. She had the personality. She had the smile. You believed it. Like you said, if Lori Petty was in that role, you'd see her as playing as sarcastic. Yeah. When you see Sandra Bullock, you believe that she's really that innocent and naive, that she doesn't know the difference, that she's trying to be this, and yet she's super sweet and innocent still. And so I love Sandra Bullock in the movie, quite frankly. But hey, speaking of people in the movie, what about the fact that halfway through the movie, we get basically a stand-up routine.
With Dennis Larry?
With Dennis Larry. I mean, he honestly breaks into his routine from back then where he would just go on this rant, when he would just do his rant. It's so perfect. He is great in that role. That was one of the first times we actually saw him stand out in a movie type role. I mean, now he's
not even a main character. And you could still go 30 years later, go Edgar Friendly. And just remember he was in that role and he played it like that. He played it so perfectly. He played the antithesis to the society that Cocteau had created, right?
Yeah,
That's what
and
I love about
he's
that.
leading these people down in the sewers and stuff,
Yeah.
and who just want to be normal people, who want to live normal
Yeah.
lives. And it's weird how that creation is down below the streets, where it's just these normal people who are just living their normal life, and that's all they want. They just want to drive normal cars and to eat normal food, and I just love the fact that, like I said, Dennis Leary, he just busts right into his own stand-up routine. You could have handed him a mic and a cigarette, and just like he could have just been, he's just doing the whole thing, it just.
He's a good actor. He's a good actor, and that really kind of, I think that brought him up because that was a year before we got The Ref.
Yeah,
him in the Ref, and that's one of my favorite holiday movies.
Yeah,
and then of course
he went from just being the guy doing those MTV spots.
Yeah.
To being a serious, possible actor like that.
I liked him.
I gotta tell you a story. So funny story. His song "A-Hole"?
I'm an asshole.
Yes.
I'm an asshole. Well, actually, it's funny because that ties into when I ran for governor.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So before, just to preface yours, when
Yeah.
I was running for governor, the radio station wanted us to pick 3 new laws we'd put into effect if we were governor, and what would be the one thing we would change about our state. Right.
Okay.
So I said cheaper beer, better music, bigger boobs. That would be a $10 copay on your HMO, because I was thinking about the people and thinking ahead. And what would I change about the state of California? I would change the Pledge of Allegiance to Dennis Leary's theme song and theme song "Asshole" and dare the world to try to F with us again. Now, this is 2 years post 9/11, so I was coming at some patriotic comedy on this one.
Wow.
But I just made that joke, and people were like, "Yeah, man, yeah, I like what you got. I like what this guy's saying."
Why didn't you get elected again?
I don't know. I mean, they found some incriminating tweets, and it was just the whole thing.
That was it. Okay. No, it's funny, man. It's funny, man, because when I started playing guitar, I was 15, and I played in church a lot, and I would figure out stuff by bands and everything. And so I'd be playing, in our church. We had a small little church, and I always tried to get my friends to come to church with me, and like none of them wanted to come to church, and it was like I was there and stuff. And so me learning to play guitar, I would learn to play like popular stuff. So during the end where it'd be like quiet, and there'd just be like some music playing, like I'd be playing like a Metallica tune, like I'd be playing Guns N' Roses. I was like always playing like "Don't Cry" by Guns N' Roses, or "November Rain" or something like that. My friends would be like, "Oh yeah," or it'd be like "Nothing Else Matters" by Metallica or something like that. And so one day I accidentally figured out how to play the "A-Hole" song. Just like that. And I was just and I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And so all my friends are sitting like in church cracking up because I'm playing the "A-Hole" song as like,
and no one knows what it is.
No one knows.
Exactly. It's like my friends with Tenacious D when they start playing "F Her Gently." My friend on his guitar, just like you're doing the whole thing, and we're all like laughing, and I was like, "Well, that's a good song." Like, yeah. I mean, but the thing is, Dennis Leary at the time was like top of his game, I think, like comedy wise. And I love Dennis Leary even now. Like I haven't seen him in a while, but I'd love to see him come back. But what's great is mentioning earlier that Jack Black cameo. So if you, so if in that scene when they're underground and when he's doing that rant, Jack Black is there with him.
Really?
I think it was Jack Black's like first, he's credited in the movie. He like Rob Schneider, not credited with lines. Jack Black credited. It's actually, when you watch the end credits of the movie and they start to scroll up, you'll see featured actors and you'll see Jack Black. So this is before like Mars Attacks. This is before Cable Guy, before his career really took off.
Is this after Neverending Story 3?
Yes, I think it was. We don't talk about that movie though. Although maybe we will on this show. Maybe if people want us to cover Neverending Story franchise, we'll dive in. I don't know if you want to do it. We'll find a guest.
Yeah, I love the first one. I remember going to see the second one. Atreyu.
Yeah, it's a hard one to go back to be honest with you. Like Wolfgang Peterson did a great job with it when I was a kid. It's like going back trying to watch The Last Starfighter. Those are the kind of movies that are best left in your childhood. Whereas this movie, even though it is quite a bit in my childhood,
it's look still like big, strong.
Oh, geez.
Hands. They look like big, strong hands. I love that movie growing up, and then part 2 ruined my childhood.
Hey man, Jonathan Brandis though, you can't knock Jonathan Brandis.
Oh my gosh,
you'll find it. I'll find us some copies of those movies, and we'll do this. We'll do this for the franchise.
Watch party.
We'll watch them. We'll talk about them. We'll torture ourselves with the second and third one.
You got to listen to the Lonely Islands version of Atreyu and
I'm a big Lonely Island fan. I'm not too sure.
What was the luck dragon? So it was Atreyu,
Falcor.
Falcor. So you hear Atreyu, Falcor, Atreyu, Falcor. Ooh, Atreyu. Yeah, Falcor. Oh, Atreyu. Oh, Falcor. Ooh, Atreyu.
It's like an old Adam Sandler sketch from They're All Gonna Laugh at You or something like that, right?
Atreyu.
Those guys really brought. I love those albums.
Oh, I love
those.
I've seen them live, dude, and they are fantastic.
Oh, you suck.
They went on tour last year. I saw them at the Fox Theater in Detroit. It's awesome. They come out, like, the first song is them singing about how they're backstage, and the whole first song is about that they're backstage. And we're sitting next to this couple. Tiffany and I are there next to this couple that have their teenage daughter, and they obviously did not know what they were in for that night. And so, like, every time some overtly sexual thing gets dropped, the couple is like sitting there looking at each other. We're all standing up and singing and stuff. And the young teenage girl is singing and stuff. And these parents are looking at each other like, what did we bring our daughter to? Oh my God. But the first song is great. They're talking about how they're backstage and they're like, now we're coming down the hallway from backstage. Now we're looking at the people from backstage. Now we're thinking about coming out on the stage, but we're not there yet because we're backstage. And then all of a sudden the music like crescendos, and then they're like, now we're on stage. And everybody's like jumping around and everybody's like into it. And then all of a sudden, now the music's dying down. Why are we out here? We should go backstage. And like they're hiding behind something. It's like, should we come back out? I don't know. They're just awesome. I love the Lonely Island, man. They're just fantastic.
Oh yeah, I've been ever since I heard Jizz in My Pants on SNL, I've been a fan. So and then of course I still pop
always
on,
a fan of that. I mean,
it's just it's just like Dick in a Box, and then also like the Natalie Portman rap from 2006.
Dude, I fake proposed to Tiffany with the whole Dick in a Box thing.
Nice.
Yeah, I had a little novelty thing. She knew that I bought the ring, but she didn't know when I was going to give it to her. So at Christmas, I had this little Christmas box, and I said, honey, there's something I've been wanting to give you for quite a while. And she knew that I had the ring because we went out and picked the ring together, but I just told her I wasn't going to tell her when. And so I said, I think the time may be right to give you this. And I got down on one knee and I'm like, Merry Christmas, honey. And she opens it up and it's like, boing. And it's just like, oh, I hate you. Yeah. What, Demolition Man? What?
Yeah. Congratulations on being married, and referencing Lonely Island. That's fantastic. But Demolition Man.
Yes.
No, there's a lot of good. I mean, who else is in this movie? Jesse Ventura. It has a cameo in it.
Yes, he does.
As Adam, a cryocon ally. And what's funny about that is apparently there was actually a fight scene between him and Stallone that got cut.
Really?
So yeah, there's according to Wikipedia, there's a thing there with that. Okay. I don't know why it got cut, but there's another bit that got cut too, which I find to be fascinating. So one of the subplots, and it wasn't even really a subplot, but it was mentioned, like Spartan had a daughter, young daughter, when he went into the cryogenically cryo freeze. Then when he got out 40 some odd years later, she would have been like in her 50s or something along those lines. And
I thought it was only 30 years.
No, because he went in 1997 and then he got out in 2032. So that would have been 30 some odd, 35 years.
35 years. Yeah.
So she would have been like, I don't know. She was whatever, but they're actually,
I'll be honest with you. At first I thought they were going to reveal that Sandra Bullock was his daughter.
Well, that's actually part of the problem, was because in early test screenings, people kind of came to the conclusion that was his daughter. So when the whole sex thing happened, they got a little bit weirded out by it. So they had to cut around that.
Spartan, you've been fined.
Yeah, well, that was why there was
15 credits for having virtual sex with your daughter.
I quite frankly, if it was using protection like they were going for, I think it would have been fine. But that was why there was that scene, I think, earlier on.
Wait, hold on. Hold on.
I'm just saying the laws there feel, and you keep, look, dude, I'm just saying no one would have known. No one would have known.
The naked girl on the screen would have known.
Well, you know what? My
gosh, can you imagine that movie like differently now if that had turned out that was his daughter?
Well, I mean, if they would have gone through with it, it would have been a bit. They would have been a bit too much. But apparently they just they cut it down, and
there was Taco Bell after that. I don't know.
Yes, it's the best way to unwind after a long day.
You can't smoke a cigarette in that utopian world, so he's like,
oh yeah, well they go to Taco Bell and get a bean burrito.
Doing commercial, like after I have virtual mind sex with my daughter, I go to Taco Bell.
What was it? It was when they like there was a scene, I think it was like on the way to the museum, right?
Mm-hmm.
That she goes, "Oh, I looked in your file and you have a daughter.
Yeah.
Do you want to look her up?" And he's like, "No." And so that right there immediately de-established that she would have been his kid, right?
Yeah.
And so like just that one little scene is all it took to kind of like establish it with the audience of like, "Oh, I see. We're good.
Yep.
There's nothing like that happening." So that's pretty cool. And yeah, and then of course, I wonder at the end if he would have gone and looked up his kid after the fact. Like I always kind of wonder like what would have happened if they would have done a sequel to it. Cause I feel like the world was rife for a sequel. I mean, like how would it have changed? But also there was, apparently they did actually have a scene with the daughter. She was supposed to be down underground with Edgar Friendly.
Oh,
and they ended up just cutting that. And I'm okay with them cutting that. I feel like it didn't necessarily need to be there. And I get why they did it, but I'm like, okay, cool. Like we can just leave that out. Like that doesn't add anything to me. Cause it just kind of stops the story, like dead in its tracks, I think.
Yeah.
Cause it's all about stopping Simon Phoenix. And I think again, going back to talking about Wesley Snipes' performance in the role, we kind of overlooked that a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's his most iconic role. He actually turned it down multiple times.
Yep.
And so it was Joe Silver and the director went and tracked him down on the set of Rising Sun with Sean Connery when they were doing that Michael Crichton adaptation. And they convinced him to come and be in this movie. And I would say right around that time, we're talking Passenger 57 and Rising Sun and, coming off of White Men Can't Jump. Yep. Snipes was, again, top of his game. I think we're talking about multiple people in this movie at this time that were like, well, not Bullock, because she was absolutely, like she was new. That was like kind of her first.
Yeah.
Not her first role as like her second role, but it was like not what put her out there. That would have been Speed. But I think that her character lasted longer pop culture wise from Demolition Man than Speed.
Well, I mean, and Speed 2 really just put her up over the top, man. I mean, just established her that she could carry a movie by herself.
Well, because it Jason Patrick was
oh my god, what a horrible movie that was.
Yeah, Keanu got lucky, but Keanu paid a price for not doing Speed 2. But in the end, he won.
I just remember Speed 2 because I went on a date with a woman who turned out to be 13 years older than me when I went to go see Speed 2. I was 20 years old. She was 33, and she was pretty hot, and she was the envy of all my friends. But then I found out that she had just gone through a divorce and had 2 kids.
Well,
that's my Speed 2 story.
Well, you were speedy to get the hell out of there. So there we go.
Well, I stuck around for a little while because she was hot. I mean,
there you have it, folks.
It was going faster than that boat.
Oh my! I only saw Speed 2 one time. I'm very good to not.
Yeah, me too. That's it. That's all.
Probably one of my stupid favorite things about this movie is they shot at the LA Convention Center for Cocteau Center, right?
Mm-hmm.
They shot the interior of that, and I've gone to LA Convention Center so many times. Nice. But they shot the exterior shots in San Diego at the San Diego Convention Center.
Really?
So yeah, so when they do the exterior shots of when like they're outside towards the end of the movie, like, walking away, that is the outside of Comic-Con. That is the outside of Comic-Con. And then they went, now the interior stuff is like the inside of E3. So I just laugh at that. That's because funny. Like those are my main connections to those locations.
Those are cool.
So I really enjoyed that as a personal thing. But I mean, like all in all, like the movie, the script was well done. Joel Silver did a great job producing it. Like the final action scene in the cryo center, like they took him out and like he's got like the freeze gun and and it almost comes across like a Mr. Freeze, like they're setting him up as this massive supervillain.
Yep.
And I think it would have been cool. I'm not gonna lie, it would have been cool if he would have survived that encounter. If he would have survived and gotten away, setting up a sequel, like thinking he's dead. I mean, they absolutely established that he is dead.
He better be dead. There's no way.
There's no way to come back from Jason 10 on that one. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way to come back from being cryogenically frozen and then
shattered into pieces.
But
when they melt, he may be like T2. You could just like,
oh, that would have been cool to see, because that would have been,
that could have been one of the things that they really rehabilitated him.
The technology was there at the time
with the ability to just meld right back together.
That would have been pretty cool. I will say this though, so it's like one of the things I like, what I find interesting is like when you look at the director of this movie, Marco Brambilla, he hasn't done much, right? He has one of the most, in my mind, one of the most iconic movies of all time, Demolition Man. And then 4 years later, that was his only directorial effort. 4 years later, well, in the 90s at least, was Excess Baggage, that Alicia Silverstone, Benicio del Toro movie that was not good. No. And then he did the miniseries Dinotopia for ABC in 2002. And the last thing he did was a segment for a movie called Destricted. Other than that, I think he's done like music videos or something along those lines, but he hasn't really done, he's done like video installation, according to this thing right here. So he hasn't really done much, but he was able to put together this movie that I think should have gotten him like more kind of like campy.
Yeah. What's the deal with all this video installation stuff?
I don't know. He's a video artist. Maybe that was kind of what they went for. But
he did a Kanye West video.
Well, but look at like Dean Parasot, right? Dean Parasot, his big claim to fame is flat out, Galaxy Quest. And then he's got, then he just did Bill and Ted Face the Music, which I liked. I don't know how much you cared for it or not.
I loved it. See, the first time I saw it, I had to suspend my, I really think, and when we did our review of it, I'll be honest with you, what I really feel now is if you bring back a property that's like 30 years ago or something like that, with everything being shot on digital right now, I think it would be a really good idea to maybe shoot those things on film if you're going to bring back a property like that, to actually make an effort to do that, because it has a certain look. Yeah. And I think like if you watch Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey and then you go right to Bill and Ted Face the Music, the elements are there, but it just looks different. So I think it's kind of jarring at first, because you have to kind of like bring your mind back into the future, so to speak. Yeah. If you go back to the past to watch that, you have to bring yourself back to the present, really, to be able to see it. And so it's just a different look, it's a different style, it's a different, everything. And so that's what kind of threw me off at first, honestly, about Bill and Ted, because I'm a huge Bill and Ted fan. I love Bill and Ted, but the second time I watched it, I was used to it now. So I was like, okay. So that edge kind of went off, because I wasn't looking at it critically. I was just like, hey, I'm here for the ride now. Because before it was like that build up, and you're just ready and you got your expectations. Once you know what's there, I think it's like anything, like you can just go, oh, this is what it is. So I can just enjoy it now.
For me, I didn't rewatch 1 and 2 before jumping into 3. I just didn't have time. So I didn't have any of that, and I just fell right into it, and I was totally cool. Like that was, I had a smile from beginning to end. I love that movie. It's so funny. It's so good. But here's an interesting factoid about Demolition Man. I like these conversations go off topic a little bit. It's always fun. But I would argue at this point that this, outside of the critical acclaim he got from like Rocky and Rambo or First Blood, would be that this would have been Stallone's biggest year ever, because in May of that year, Cliffhanger came out. Okay. May 28th, Cliffhanger came out. October 8th, 93, Demolition Man came out only a few months later. Yeah. So he's released 2 movies in 1993 that were just, in my mind, massive to his career. I mean, I think Cliffhanger did more money overall, but Demolition Man pulled in 154 million worldwide.
This is 159 million.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was a lot for back in 93, by the way. That was a lot of money back from 93. So like these movies are profitable, Cliffhanger as well. And it's like this kind of looking at the 2 different types of action films that he was doing there is Cliffhanger is more of a thriller, an action thriller. And then Demolition Man is more of an action comedy. Yeah. And then right before that, he did Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, but we don't talk about that one. Because that movie kind of, in essence, kind of helped to destroy Hollywood, but that's a topic for another day. I'm not kidding you. That movie did. That and Blank Check. I'm not kidding you. The same writer, he wrote a book called Save the Cat, and he created this beat sheet. So if you go look up the Blake Snyder beat sheet.
You were telling me about this before, I think. Yeah. So they're all movies
movies are written like to this beat, and they're identical in many cases. and you'll be able to identify certain things. And so
Blank Check, I remember seeing Blank Check, but I remember absolutely nothing.
It's on Disney Plus.
About Blank. It's on Disney.
It's on Disney Plus. Go watch it.
I don't remember.
It's about a kid
Blank
who
Check.
gets $1 million. That's
right. Okay.
You know, it's like it was like a knockoff Richie Rich sort of thing. It wasn't terrible. It was okay. It was like, but Stop My Mom Will Shoot. No, that screwed Stallone because Schwarzenegger screwed Stallone. Right. So I think that's why he had to come back with this. You know the story of that, right? With Stop My Mom Will Shoot.
No.
So the movie is a terrible concept.
Yeah,
it is a terrible concept. And so Stallone, coming off of like Tango and Cash and maybe one of the Rambo movies, was like looking for his next project. And this movie came across his desk, but he was like, I don't want to do it. And then he heard that Schwarzenegger had put out that Schwarzenegger was interested in taking the role. And so to get a one-up on Schwarzenegger, because they had a competition back then.
Oh, yeah.
He took that movie because Schwarzenegger was looking at it, and he jumped at it in order to be able to get a one-up on him. And I mean, come on, who's got the last laugh on that one, really?
Oh, my gosh.
Like that goes to show you like the ego and hubris of Stallone at the time. But coming and doing Cliffhanger and then Demolition Man, I think, as much as I love Schwarzenegger, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
These are great movies. So
the comedy in this movie is well timed.
Yeah.
It's serious enough that it's an action movie, but the comedy is great. Like when he eats the rat burger, he's down below and there's no meat, you can't eat just a regular good cheeseburger or whatever. And,
where's the cows?
Yeah.
Rata. What's a rat burger?
Oh, drinks the beer.
It's good.
It's good. It's good.
It's just like
everybody's just like looking at him like, what in the
No,
world?
I love that. I love that part of the movie because it's just like it just shows you like he's just rolling with it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like as a fish out of water, it's not like it's one of the better ones because he's just kind of always rolling with the punches.
I think that's what I really like about this movie is Stallone usually in his movies, he takes himself so serious, right? He's trying to portray this really hard, serious soldier or fighter or whatever, and he's done some comedies, but like when he's doing a flat out comedy like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, when it's like this, it's dumb. It just doesn't work for me
because he's trying to be the serious one when Estelle Getty is like the comedic relief,
and it just doesn't work for me.
It's like, what was that Burt Cop and a Half? Right? That Burt Reynolds movie, Cop and a Half.
Yeah.
That was bad too. I mean, they did a bunch of those movies back then where they tried this different pairing of like, hey, why don't we put a sizzled, a seasoned detective with a head of lettuce. We're gonna say, I mean, it's gonna be the biggest movie of all time. You're gonna go to the movies and you're gonna go, oh my God, I want a salad. And the salad industry is going to blow up, and then we're all going to make a lot of money. I mean,
at the end, you're going to feel tearful when they cut the head of lettuce up into a salad, and then you're going to realize it was another head of lettuce.
It wasn't to come back.
It wasn't
Son of lettuce. Son of lettuce. It's the sequel. The $1 billion.
Dude, we got to make that movie.
Oh, there we go, man. There we go. Osimo 2000 on that thing. Adam Sandler stars alongside a head of lettuce.
Yes.
It's just,
I love this movie because like the jokes in it
are
good. And you can tell that he's comfortable.
Yeah.
He's not trying to be something else. He's comfortable in everything that happens. Like it's smooth. The transitions are smooth.
It's really good.
The story is smooth. It makes sense. Like the mind control aspect, I love where the bad guy can't kill the main villain. So you got Wesley Snipes, as Phoenix, and he's been brainwashed and controlled where he literally can't kill the main villain guy.
But I like how he figures out how to.
Yes,
that was good. Also, the de-illuminate. Like that's a good line too. That's a good. That's still used. I still know people to this day that say that. They walk into a room and they say, like, I mean, people have tied that into their Amazon Home or their Google Home or whatever.
That's awesome.
Alexa.
That's awesome.
So they say it when they come on in. Alexa, illuminate. And it's like that has also held on too. Like I think we forget that if you break down this movie, you can see so much of it is lived on in so many ways. And I just feel like if there's one that if they put this back, they should put this back in theaters. I think Warner Brothers should go back into their library and just start re-releasing some of these movies to get people back into the theaters.
Yeah.
And I would go see it in a heartbeat because I never saw it when I was
yeah.
a kid. I never saw it in theaters when I was a kid because I was like what 11 when it came out.
I never saw it in theaters.
So,
like I said, I saw it on a free movie weekend from HBO. So
I had to rent it. You know, I'm like, ooh, this looks pretty cool. It's like True Lies. You know,
Oh
like
my
mom's like, it's rated R. You can't go see it. I'm like, but mom, it's Schwarzenegger. It's Schwarzenegger. I gotta go see Schwarzenegger. She's like, all right, well, I'll tell you what,
Jarbo with his beard.
I
and his
was,
mustache.
yeah,
I gotta go see Schwarzenegger.
I was 12 at the time. It was 1994. And I'm like, but it's Schwarzenegger. You gotta go. So I told her, how about this, mom? How about this? We'll read the book because they had the novelization. We were going camping for a week. So I said, let's read the book, mom. And if you like the book, take me to see the movie. And she's like, okay, I can agree to that. I'm like, yes. So we both read the book and we both loved the book.
So how does the dancing scene read?
I don't recall the dancing scene in the book. I don't.
What's her name?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
So I have never really found Jamie Lee Curtis to be like attractive.
Then you've never seen Trading Places.
Apparently not. I just
wow.
Wait, hold on. Trading Places, isn't that with
that's Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy?
Okay, yeah, I have seen it, but I don't know. I've never found her. It's been a long time since I've seen.
Not even from like the neck down. I mean,
no. See, until True Lies.
Well,
and that scene in True Lies, you're just like,
yeah, we'll have to do
what's
True Lies
going on. What's going on with that, man? Like,
yeah, we'll have to do a True Lies episode.
My wife loves True Lies, man. I tell you what, she absolutely loves True Lies, and it just that. But you know what? In the spirit of Demolition Man, I feel like True Lies is kind of that for Schwarzenegger, where he doesn't come across as pretentious, or he's not forcing
it. It's very natural.
He's not forcing comedy. It's kind of in that same vein, actually, and it's just a cool movie. And it's amazing to me when I talk to somebody who either has not seen True Lies or has not seen Demolition Man. And there's a lot of people who they don't know that this movie exists.
With True Lies, it's not on Blu-ray for one. It's not on Blu-ray. They released one version of it on freaking DVD.
Really?
I have a copy of it that I got off of Stars. They had up-resed it to 1080. So I have a copy of it and it looks good. But I'm like, look, man, you give me the 4K release of True Lies, like an actual, like, because we're coming up on last year would have been 25 years, 94 to 2019. Man. So it's like, if Cameron can go back and do like a 4K restoration of T2, give me a why the hell is True Lies not out there? But like, that's a whole other topic for a whole other video.
Well, it's interesting too, because, especially with all the sequel talk that's been on and off again.
Oh God, if they brought, why
wouldn't you?
Could we petition for Demolition Man 2 and True Lies 2? I mean, both Schwarzenegger and Stallone are in their 70s, but
Stallone said they're working on it. Did you see that video of Stallone?
Demolition Man 2. Yeah.
Demolition Man 2. He flat out said that they were working on it, that they were in the script process, which blew me away. That like that came from him.
That was a few months ago, actually.
Yeah, that was just a few months ago. So who knows where they're at?
All right,
with it now.
We'll wrap it up after this, but let me just kind of quickly take a look here at what he says here. He says, I got a call from producer Joel Silver. And says, what do you think of this? Meryl Streep is Stallone's daughter for the sequel. What do you think? And he's like, okay, get Meryl on set and I'll come out. Now, however, a sequel is actually moving forward and Streep likely isn't in the running for the cast this time. But if they're going to make it about the daughter, that could be something fascinating to see what happens with that one. I don't know. That was Joel Silver calling him a long time ago.
Okay.
It's like, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but look, give me another one. But
that'd be a great way to find out, like to flesh out that story of the daughter and what happened.
And we're at a point now where, again, these movies that are 30 years old can get a sequel.
Yes.
And as long as it's not a freaking reboot.
Yes. Thank God.
And it's something, it's not like a Ghostbusters 2016, but it's like a Bill and Ted 3.
Yeah.
Where it continues the story, people will embrace it with open arms.
Bookend it.
Yeah, you got to bookend these stories, man. We keep getting screwed over on this. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Demolition Man doesn't necessarily need a sequel. It's perfect on its own.
Oh yeah, no, it's great.
But if you're going to give me a sequel, I would want to see Joel Silver come back to produce, because I don't feel he's done a lot recently, and I do like Joel Silver movies.
Mhm.
I don't know if you could be able to get the same director. I mean, get someone who can. There's there's a lot of good comedy action directors out there. Give me like Tim Miller. I would take Tim Miller.
There you go.
Deadpool Tim Miller.
Yeah.
And Terminator Dark Fate, which I actually happen to quite enjoy. And I might be alone on that one.
It's no, it's not as bad as
It's people made out. People made it out to be real bad, but
people are just angry now. If you put a female character, like, people would probably be ticked off. People don't even know what Demolition Man is, but if they found out that it's going to be about the daughter,
yeah, they'd probably sit there
complain.
Well, why is it about the daughter? Why isn't it about the
John Spartan? Well, I don't know, because John
74 years old.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. 74 years old. Like, why would it be about the daughter? Well, I mean, look at Bill and Ted. Look at Bill and Ted. I mean, spoilers for Bill and Ted, right? But like,
I like that storyline.
I don't mind it. Like, the first, like, I called that. Like, I think it was pretty easily telegraphed. Pretty much at the beginning of the movie, I called it. I looked at my wife and I said, yeah, they're going to end up passing the torch. The daughters are going to come up with it. But I love how Bill and Ted, it wasn't like they weren't part of it. They were responsible for it. They came on stage, they did their thing, and it was the whole world. It was the entire universe is playing together in harmony. And so I think that you could do a Demolition Man 2. You flesh out the daughter story, and that makes sense. It just makes sense because that was the one like little string that was not neatly tied up at the end of Demolition Man. You didn't know about the daughter or what happened.
They didn't, and they could have done something with that, but they didn't, and that's okay. And I mean, it's like, here it is. We're still talking about it. Like, bring it on. I say at this point, bring it on. So Enosh, let me ask you this: what are your final thoughts about Demolition Man? Do you recommend it?
I totally recommend Demolition Man. I've recommended it to several people. I've watched it with my family. I've introduced my family to it. I've introduced others to it. It's a movie. I've got the DVD. I pull it out, occasionally and watch it. And if it's ever on TV, I've actually caught it on TV a few times, and I got to watch it. It's like one of those things that if I start watching, I have to watch it all the way through. And it's I think it's one of those movies that not a lot of people now are aware of, or it's one of those movies that they saw a long time ago, but they don't really remember it and they don't appreciate it. And when they rediscover it, they're like, wow, that was really good. So I would tell anybody, if you haven't seen the movie, like, if you didn't take Matt's direction and watch it before you watch this, and stop this video, and you just felt like you had to watch us, I hope that we have done it some justice, where you feel like you can go and watch this movie now and kind of get a feeling for it and understand that this is 90s at its best.
Yeah.
This is the actors and the people of the 90s, the people that we were seeing on screen, left and right, whether it be TV, movies, whatever. This is a great cast. It's a great film. It's funny where it needs to be funny. It's serious where it needs to be serious. It like you said, it's culturally relevant. Where we're wanting to right now, especially for now, where we're trying to kind of whitewash everything, in the idea of like everybody can be politically correct and everybody, don't offend anybody and everything, all of our speech is going to be right, and they're, just making everything where it's nothing's dirty, everything's got to be, super clean, or else. And so it kind of shows like you really don't want that. If you just literally kind of bleach everything and just wipe it all down, it's boring.
Yeah.
That's not life.
No, it's really not. And that's what I love about the movie is like, there's that message of like, you can't do it. And it is very anti-PC. And even in the early 90s, those of you who may not remember life back then, PC culture was nowhere near as bad as it is now. But it was there, and it eventually went away. And we got things like the Chappelle Show, which I think is one of the best things of comedy ever. So if you go over, if you want to pick it up on Blu-ray, it is available over on Amazon. You can get it for, it says like $6 in multi-format. I don't know what that means, or $24 roughly for the Blu-ray. But you can pick up a 4-pack on DVD for $10 that has Tango and Cash.
Oh my gosh.
The Specialist, Demolition Man, and Over the Top.
Over the Top.
So,
my gosh.
Yeah. I put this hat on backwards. I'm like a whole different person. I can't do a Stallone. My friend can do a good Stallone. But
what was the oh my gosh, I remember being a kid and everybody was like doing the over the top grip and yeah.
Yeah, I know.
What
Now
a-
it's like it's one of the funniest guys.
arm wrestling movie.
It's just again 80s. If you it's 80s.
Yes.
Anything that
doesn't
had a
make sense.
premise could be made back in the day. Like
Absolutely.
anything. It's like
Absolutely.
yeah, it's like if you ever seen Monster Squad, like
Oh my gosh, Monster Squad.
yeah, we'll have to talk about that
Wolfman's
one time.
got nards.
Yeah, I know. It's a great movie. And it's a Shane Black written film too, so it's very much aesthetically in the same line as this.
Yeah.
So again, my final words on it are absolutely I cannot recommend it enough.
Absolutely.
It's one of the best it's one of the best comedy action movies ever made.
I agree.
It's so perfect for its time. It's so perfect for now. If you like Stallone at all, I would argue this is probably my personal favorite of Stallone's films. He goes more
I agree.
he goes more political down the road, like what the Rambo movies got kind of political. But this one is not. It's just it's satire, and I think it's perfectly encapsulates the time, and then it's like a time capsule for our time. So it's very weird. But I recommend it wholeheartly. And Enosh, where can people find you? Let people know where they can find you.
You can find me. You can find me here on YouTube at Poindexter Lounge, and we do lots of fun stuff over there on the channel. And we would love to have you over there if you're into nerds stuff at all. Nerd culture. We're a place for nerds. We cover everything from TVs, movies, games, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, superheroes, toys, and everything else. And then you can also find me on Twitter at either at Enosh Fee. Or you can find me at Poindexter Lounge without the E, because they won't let you have that one extra letter. So you just got to omit the E in the middle. This is Poindexter Lounge. And we're also on Instagram at Poindexter Lounge. Basically all, on Facebook. We got a Facebook group at Poindexter Lounge. So yeah.
Awesome.
Hit us up.
Hit them up.
Join the lounge. Join the lounge.
Yeah, join the lounge. Good stuff there. Good commentary. My name is Matt Jarbo, but you already know that. And thank you guys for tuning into the very first episode of the revamped Podio commentary, just a discussion about film. It will, between me and friends, and I'll hopefully get some different people in. And I even have a couple connections with some people in the industry. Maybe I can get them to come on and talk about their films, which I think would be amazing to have. I actually almost got Uwe Boll to come and talk to me about. He will talk to me. But he wants to talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about video game movies. And because I don't hate the movies. Like, I want to talk to him about, like, as a fan, but he won't do it. And that's fine. That's fine. But I would love to, like, sit him down to talk about movies and whatnot. So that's kind of the plan here. 2020, 2021, 2022 and beyond. I want to go for more of a fun conversation. This was a blast. We were making jokes, having a good old time. Yeah. So I appreciate everyone tuning in. If you want to support the channel, patreon.com/Matt Jarbo is a great way to do it. Helps keep, if you like this content specifically, trust me, it's the best thing you can do to keep it coming, because that's what we can do there. Anyway, thank you, Enosh, for the point. Appreciate that. And leave your comments below if you're on YouTube. If you're coming in through the audio podcast feed, find me on Twitter at mjarbo or youtube.com/3bucktheater. All right, everyone. Thank you again. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.